everybody. We're at the Vancouver Folk Festival. I'm Darek Mazzone. Thank you for listening to KEXP. Thank you for watching Sama. I'm here with my dear friend and mentor, John Kertzer. I'm here with Kiya Tabassian, originally from Iran, Montreal, now living where? Montreal. I love that city. I'm here with one of my favorite artists of all time, Kayhan Kalhor. I'm not being facetious about, but I've been a big fan for a long time. And I'm here with a new friend, Hamin Honari. So we're at the Vancouver Folk Festival. You guys just put on a beautiful performance. I always ask this question first of anybody, and sometimes it pisses people off, sometimes it doesn't. Go try. Why music? So many things you could do. Was it like I had no choice, or did you come from this is what you do?
Just for the love of music. I grew up in a musical family.
When did you realize it was like, okay, I could do this? Like I could actually,
I still haven't realized.
This is the thing. Smart. Okay. Kayhan, what about you?
I tell you what I feel now, and then I go back a little bit. I think in the kind of world that we live today, with all this hatred, negative things, stupidity, ignorance, wars, and the reasons which cause that, you would not be able to live in this world if there wasn't art in general. And for me, music, it's a window to the world that keeps us going on.
Okay.
Life without music is not going to be a really interesting life. And I started when I was 5, and then by the time I was 12 or 13, I was really serious about it and realized that this is going to be my life. And
12 or 13?
Yes.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I was actually, by the time I was 13, I was performing professionally and made some money. Actually, I made more than my dad did.
That must have been interesting. He must have been stoked.
Yeah. And then, so it was serious, and I didn't want to do anything else. Not because of the pay.
And it's a lovely.
Yeah, but anyways, you can't just leave it, and then if you live with music as long as I have, it just becomes more serious every day, and it becomes, you don't have to practice anymore. Your mind is there, it's in your blood, it's in your breath. It's there, it becomes a part of your life.
Okay.
And, you don't have to pursue it pursues you, it's part of you, so
Okay.
I think that's enough.
I like that answer. I like that it's not just all internal, it's external. You're part of a dialogue.
Yeah, well, for me, music is also this place to be able to connect other people also to that world. It became also kind of a mission when I look at it now as well. I knew that I wanted to be a musician.
Okay.
My family moved from Tehran when I was 14 years old, but I was playing all in the sitar for 2-3 years. I had a very strong relationship with this instrument too, with the music. And I told my parents that I will come with them if they agree that I will pursue the music and become a musician. And they always supported me. And it's a nice story because, when I arrived in Canada in 1980, I know much Persian music was happening at the time, but there was a guy, a musician, who was living in Ottawa. I knew that he's giving some classes, also sometimes in Montreal, so we discovered that it's Kayhan Kalhor.
Mm-hmm.
So I became his student when I was 14 years old.
Yeah. About the role of teaching or passing on and everything. You have been involved with music forever. At the musicology, you've played, you've DJ'd, you've presented it. And I've never asked you this question.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you this question right now. You guys are witnesses, we're all witnesses. Sean is obviously one of my mentors. Why?
Why? Why not? I fell in love with music at a very young age. When I was 10 years old, I was playing classical piano. I saw some amazing concerts as a teenager. I grew up in New York.
Yeah.
And it's very lucky in New York to be able to have access to this world of music. So I actually started with playing Western classical music, but then I just fell in love with rock and roll and blues, and years later I learned about African music and studied it's like great African musicians who really led me in that direction.
So we're talking about music. We're talking about how music in one form or another connects us. This is the thing that's interesting about music, and I have my own relationship with it, obviously. But it's one of the things that really shows how similar people are, because we all fall in love with it in a really interesting way. So whether your culture, language, something happens at a concert, if it's really good, everybody kind of falls in love. All at the same time, there's something that happens, and it doesn't matter that they don't have to understand the language and understand where people are from.
Magic of sound.
Yeah, it's just something that connects, and it's sticky. It lasts a while. And so I always kind of put this on artists that are putting this out, because you end up being ambassadors, and you showcase, you present your culture, you present your language, you present your story in a way that can sometimes kind of flank the prejudices. Not always, we're not all, it's not magic, but can flank the prejudices people have. And you guys are all, you're Persian musicians. It's a complicated relationship, right?
Yes.
In North America, it's also an ancient culture, an ancient history, one of the ancient civilizations of the world. And you're living right now in this, in a Western-dominated world here right now. There's a Chinese world in our world here. You are presenting your own narrative, your own story in this way, where it's like you're not creating a westernized version of this. You guys are creating your own particular language, your own particular story. 2023, right now, what do you think that story is? What are you telling people with this music about yourselves, about where you're from, where you are right now?
I think, as I kind of hinted that in the beginning, it's a difficult world to live in, and it becomes more difficult by the minute. All problems, ignorances, negative things, wars, hatred, because we don't know each other. We don't respect each other much, and if we know a certain culture, we're not going to harm it because we're going to respect it.
Dude.
So we do responsible in a way to introduce that and be a part of creating that knowledge that goes on among people, different countries, different races, different entities, whatever. And that's a very, very important job, I think when there's social crisis, a lot of musicians or artists or writers or, actors, begin to think about their job and what they're doing. And this is what I tell them all the time, to my students and to my colleagues and other people who ask me. They wonder, what are we doing? Can we help this situation? And yes, we can, but we can do it in a very, very important way. We could start from the bottom, and cultural education is part of what we do. Being on stage is not just playing; it's introducing a certain culture to other people. This is why we're traveling and take this hardship all the time. And this is why we're being musicians, concert musicians, play in different countries and establish this musical dialogue. As Iranians, I would say, what we're introducing is, to tell people we come from a very old culture who's responsible with a lot of innovations and culture and wisdom of the old world.
Mm-hmm.
And so this sophisticated culture comes with sophisticated music and art form.
Yeah.
And if they know that, if they're open enough to come see that concert or listen to that music, then we've done something.
Yeah.
We have introduced them to something valuable. And this is why, for myself, I can't speak for others here, but this is why I'm doing different projects with musicians around the world. With Western classical musicians, with Indian, North Indian musicians, with Turkish musicians, or others that I have done. And this is just, traditional music for us for now. What we do at this festival, but we all do different things.
Yeah.
Projecting that in living in this part of the world, because it's important. Because, if somebody comes to my concert with Yo-Yo Ma, for example, they're not people that usually go to my wrestling. They would know us music through Western classical music and that very important figure of it.
But then they fall.
And they follow and they say, well, that instrument is, what was it? And then, they might want to get to know it.
Yeah.
Share perspective of someone who's grown up here.
Yeah.
So I connected to Mr. Kalhor's music at a young age. And for me, it was always that contrast of being an immigrant living in Canadian society. And you hear, like in school, you get educated in classical music and all this stuff. But at the same time, when you realize that you come from a culture that has this very rich tradition of music, and then that's demonstrated so beautifully. Like I listened to your albums every day, and it was on like
Thank you.
on a loop on my CD player. But I realized that this music comes from this rich, beautiful background, and it fits so well in so many different cultures. So like, it has a past, it has a future, and you can connect to that. And that's really kind of what fueled me.
I think that is the
direction,
objective
yeah.
for us. This is what we do, and this is what we're on the stage.
So it's connecting to the past, bringing it to the future, but also the reality of the fact that...
And love of music. I cannot imagine the life without music. So that's why I'm just continuously doing that. But on the side, that's the purpose, what we do. But the personal pleasure and personal spiritual travel that you get, it's
you could see when you're performing, you're in the space.
that's continuous.
Very continuous.
And I just want to ask Kayhan about a beautiful new collaboration. I do an African radio show. I'm a big fan of Kora, and I just received a
Abate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maya Jabate. So I wanted to ask you about that. I understand it was recorded a few years ago.
Yes.
And finally came out. How did that collaboration work out?
We got invited by Morgenland Festival in Osnabrück, Germany. Who is, the festival is directed by a very good friend of mine, Michael Dreyer, who has a vision, and is one of the figures that I respect very much in the world of music.
So you put the two of you.
He put us, the two of us, he put us together, the two of us. And so what happened on stage, it was totally improvised for the first time. We just did like 20 minutes sound check together. And
No rehearsal.
no rehearsal. And then we liked it. We decided to record it. So that's what you have on the recording.
Sort of relates to what we've been talking about. The sky is the same color everywhere.
Yes.
I love that title.
Thank you. I love that title too because it's actually a translation of one of my favorite poems in Farsi, in Persian. Mehdi Akhavansalis, one of my favorite contemporary poets, who has beautiful poems about this and how life is difficult, and then how people can relate to each other. And he has a lot about that. And the sky is the same color everywhere. There is a connotation to it that, we should respect each other because we're from the same place, and our sky, here in Iran, in Africa, or what, it's just blue, we're the same people. I chose that name because of that lovely poem and the connotation that which offers.
Well, it's a lovely collaboration.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been rotation. So let's talk about poetry for a second, because every Iranian artist I talk to always brings up poetry.
Of course.
What role does poetry play in the way you're performing, or the way you may be inspired to present your music? Because every culture's got a different relationship with poetry.
Yeah.
And I also find, going back to your point about connecting through hard times, and how music actually is this salve when you're going through stuff. When you're going through stuff you can't even understand.
Yeah.
And what are these emotions that I'm feeling? How am I going through this? I find that poetry helps and music helps in combination that does that. And if you look at the history of the region, the history of the areas, it's not like, a cakewalk down to the beach. There's mountain stories and everything like that. So if you could expand on that a little bit.
Well, the poetry has a very large place, important place in Persian culture in general, since several centuries, since Middle Ages started, even before there. But since Middle Ages, we had many fantastic, great poets who wrote thousands of verses and from different cities. And this poetry has been very influential for the evolution of the Persian society in many sense, in sense of the spirituality that they place that this poetry has in their daily life, but also as in a spiritual way. So it's something even deeper than religion.
When you start music, you have to learn some poetry with it, because that we use the same rhythm of poetry and usually try to imitate that, and for not forgetting it, because the Iranian music is thought orally, and so we have to memorize that piece of poem as well. And the relationship between poetry and Iranian families is really deep. We actually have illiterate people who have like a book of poetry memorized. So poem, it doesn't have the same meaning as other cultures for us, as just part of living. And a lot of Sufi poems that are very influential in our everyday life, even today. Like Rumi, Sadi, Hafiz, Nazami. We can name a lot of poets that their books are found in every household, and it's very important. If you want to, go beyond that, then you study Persian literature and read the Persian, the contemporary poets as well. But this is given. We're brought up with poetry, and it's very close to us.
This is interesting because you talk about Rumi and Hafiz, they've transcended their bound.
Yes.
They're like in everybody's home.
Omar Khayyam.
But they're not connected to their roots. Like most people don't know the history of where these poets came from.
Yes.
Which also leads me to the next question, which is roots in general. Now, immigrants, you're living in Canada, the United States, it's going to change it. You're in a completely different place. You guys are performing traditional music. What do you do to keep that tradition alive to the next generation, to your children, your children's children, other people around you? We live in Seattle. There's a significant, Iranian population now.
I think Hamin is the best example of that.
Okay.
He was born here. No?
6 months.
Yeah. And he's playing a traditional instrument. He plays with us Kiya joined later. I was already a musician when I came here. So I think the immigrants community, tries to bring in some of their past. And the next generation actually becomes more proud of it than did the parents.
That's true.
I usually have all those young Iranians in my concerts who are actually third generation, and they're in their 20s, they're students, and they bring their non-Iranian friends and colleagues or students, and to introduce them to the original culture. So this means a lot, and this is why we have all this pockets of communities who are actually surviving, and they're proud of their original culture, but they're part of something else as well. In terms of culture, economy, politics, everything. I'm very concerned about what's going on in Iran politically, but also in Canada and the U.S. because I used to live in both countries. So we're all connected. Whatever happens in Turkey and the Middle East, it's going to affect us. The war in Ukraine is going to affect us.
Yeah.
So we're not one-dimensional person anymore. In our modern life, life of musician is multidimensional.
Yeah.
So I think being an immigrant is actually very helpful to live in such society.
We can't think of another way, but this leads me to my point is that I don't want to throw this on you, it's like you must, but that's your job. You show that connection.
It is.
Through your work, because most people are like, I have nothing in common with anybody from around.
Yeah.
And it's just, you do, in many ways that affect you, that are more than just like a moment, but actually make that connection. And obviously we're all old enough to realize
I think that's the most difficult part of my job, because a modern musician, I'm not the same kind of musician, or I don't have the same character or maybe same kind of lifestyle that a musician very well known and very, very well respected was taught in the 19th century. We have to do a lot of other things. We have to do this kind of interviews, we have to speak several languages, we have to know the world, we have to do this, travel all the time, present ourselves as a multidimensional person. And how successful you are in doing that, it helps your music to be heard. It's not actually, it doesn't begin with music itself. It begins with other things that make people listen to your music. But it was vice versa back then. People knew you because you were a good musician. It's a very different lifestyle.
I have a musical question, thinking in terms of improvisation. But when you do your concert, just for those who missed it, was basically one long performance, 45, 50 minutes, no breaks.
Which is usually a lot longer.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, we had time.
How much of that is purely improvised, and is the Persian system based? I am studying Indian classical music, so I know about raga and those, the rhythm cycles of things. Is it similar in structure, way that you have circuit?
Yes and no.
My first part of the question is how much of it that was improvised? 90%.
We chose this melody by one of the most beloved Ustad, guitar player, Ustad Jalil Shahnaz. It's a very beautiful melody that we started with, but that was all. So in between we played different things and jumped up and jumped and other things, but we started with a melody that we all loved. Sorry, yeah, that was the only thing that we actually knew that we were going to play.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's just different, so different every time, I'm sure.
Yes, of course. And that's the beauty of it. It's like puzzles, different puzzles that you do.
And it's quite a very free improvisation in the sense that you're referring to Indian music, for example, will they have, sets of rhythmical cycles, one after each other, in a also improvised way, but in a very set way. In our case, we didn't go in this very fixed way. So even the rhythmical cycles that came up, they were open. So we had really to
you smile like
completely be connected to each other to know where we are going and how to handle the chaos together.
And also the instruments, we live in a world where bigger, more strings, more like
grandiose
emotion with this. It just feels like, and this might not be the wrong analogy, you can't fake it.
Yeah.
And after.
This is it.
Yeah, this is interesting because, again, coming back to your previous questions, we are in a world, as we were referring, such difficult world, but also so superficial. It becomes more and more daily, and it's more superficial, more and more. So it's so important with this music where we are connected to these roots and to the quality of deepness, is to have this quality between us when we're performing, when we are living with the music, but also to give it to the audience. This 45 minutes, 1 hour, 1 hour and a half concentration of something that goes deep.
Yeah.
And that helps also the audience go deep in their, in that hour, and that has some effects.
It can be scary sometimes because they're just starting to feel something that they didn't have before. And going back to the initial question of like, the fact that it's coming from you, coming from a narrative which is ripe with propaganda, ripe with history, ripe with like this particular moment in this particular time where a lot of people think like this is the only relationship that these two countries have ever had. And there's just this, time moves, things move, and music allows people to feel that.
Yeah, I think technologically, we have many elements. Since like 20, 30 years ago, the world is another world.
Yeah.
And you can do whatever you want, well, more or less. And then there is artificial intelligence added to that if we were missing it. A lot of other innovations, new things, but in the music and the role of music and what it does to your soul and body, it stays there. And I don't think, no matter how advanced we get in this world with technology and science, the role of music stays there, and nobody can change the music.
I want to thank Hamin Honari. I want to thank Kayhan Kalhor. I want to thank Kiya Tabassian. And I want to thank John Kertzer. This is Darek Mazzone for Sama Sales Circuit Music and Art. Thank you.
Thank you.